Okay, so I'm going to start out by saying thank you again to the persons who have come forward, who have spent time with us here today. Some people are here right now. We have 11 on the platform. We have had several people this morning and yesterday, and I'm happy to say that it is not always the same. I am going to owe Shakira and Allison and Nathaniel a really big gift when we start because these are new students who have spent the entire time with us from yesterday morning until now. And I'm really very, very pleased with them. I'm happy to see Corinne from our PhD group. The lecturers have been coming. So it has really been something special that people have come out to share the HRD unit's 30th anniversary activity with us. This is something that we're going to be doing. We were supposed to start from January, but of course, life happens. But we're doing it now and nothing before its time. And as you will probably see, we have another event planned for the 20th of November, which I'm urging you all to attend. But for right now, we have something that I've been talking about for what, the last 3 years? When Tashina and her group were students in my class, they delivered a masterclass presentation on how we would integrate persons with disabilities into the Jamaican workforce. And I wanted them to share that with a broader audience than the class, than the persons who were in the room on the night. And I had invited them to do a workshop for us, but of course they were studying at the time and all of that. But it really was a good presentation, and I really needed them to share it with the wider HRD community. So when this came up that we were having an orientation for our new students, I invited them, and Tashina said yes. So she's here with us this afternoon, Tashina Brissett-Greenwood. She's a dynamic human resources practitioner. She's an entrepreneur and a transformational leader with a proven track record in aligning people's strategies with organizational goals. With experience spanning HR policy development, which will be the subject of our next talk, half an hour after she's done here. She also does performance management systems, talent development, and employee engagement. With all of that, she has driven initiatives that follow operational efficiency, cultural alignment, and measurable business impact. And in her role as Director of Human Resources and Management at the Jamaica Railway Corp, she oversees that organization's human capital strategy, ensuring the alignment of HR initiatives with corporate objectives. She's responsible for shaping and executing policies that strengthen workforce capabilities, enhancing employee engagement, and supporting operational excellence in a way that is unique and historically significant in that industry. Her leadership extends to organizational planning, industrial relations, performance optimization, and fostering a culture of continuous improvement. In short, she is using every single thing that she has ever learned from us and more. Her corporate accomplishments include spearheading the rollout of Bamboo HR and GoalSpan performance management software. She developed competency-based job descriptions linked to the organization's OKRs, and she has designed training and onboarding programs that enhance the the employees' readiness and retention in the job. She didn't always work at Jamaica Railway Corp. She used to be at RGR Gleaner, and from there, she championed wellness and team building initiatives. She established their winning netball team and has led corporate social responsibility projects that benefit education and community development. She is the founder of Brisnai Global Travel and Events. This is a travel and event management company that caters to the top executive suite from local and American companies. And that company specializes in creating high caliber corporate retreats, leadership summits, and really nice experiences for persons at that level. I'm saying all of this because, of course, one of the things I prayed for this morning is that every single person who has presented in this symposium, I want them to walk away from here with at least 10 clients. So you can see that you can engage Tashina and team in many, many ways. In addition to all of that, she is an entrepreneur in the financial coaching sector. She runs a budgetary consultancy that empowers individuals to achieve financial discipline, master money management, and build long-term wealth. Any of you with children ought to consider consulting with her on that. She is a devoted wife and proud mother of 3 children. She balances her very thriving professional and entrepreneurial pursuits with that family life. She holds an MSc in Human Resources Development. She graduated with distinction year before last, and she had a co-curricular award for outstanding leadership for us. It was last year. It was just November gone.
Last year, November.
November gone. Not even a year out of the stable, and you see where she is. She's known for her resilience, her vision, and her ability to inspire others. She inspired me when she did her practicum in the HRD office. Her leadership is guided by her commitment to people, performance, and projects. So I'm asking you, people, performance, and progress. So I'm asking you all to help me welcome Tashina Brissett-Greenwood back to the HRD unit and to our virtual lectern colleagues.
Thank you for that wonderful introduction, OMT. And I can say good afternoon, everyone. I am not familiar with most of the persons here online, but I see some familiar names. Claire Grant, Duncan Reed, for example, Jordal Clark, Ramala Campbell. I see those persons that we would have been in the same cohort, and I wanted to just say thank you so much for joining me as I present today, right? So before we get started, I just want to have everybody introduce themselves so that we can become familiar with each other. It's not a lecture, it's more of an interactive presentation, one that was taken from it's a subset of sorts from our group presentation that the Incredibles had done during our time with the Applied Behavioral Science in the Applied Behavioral Science module during our first semester. Right, so it's a subset of that. So I took some information and then I did additional research and have put together a presentation for how it is that we're going to be including persons living with disability in our workforce. So with that said, let us start with the introduction. So OMT would have introduced me, so you by now fully aware of who Tashina Brissett-Greenwood is. And I would just relay now to the other members online for them to share, to just introduce an interactive, engaging presentation, right? So I'm not just the only one speaking, but we're doing this presentation together. All right. So begin. Only I can find my slideshow from beginning. All right. So today I am going to be looking at strength in differences, building a truly inclusive workplace. And I want to be focusing on persons living with disability. So we can agree that in today's evolving workforce, diversity is more than just a corporate checkbox. It's more than that. It's about strategy and how it is that we are embedding and weaving in diversity, and not just diversity, but inclusion of the differences in perspective and experiences that can lead to creativity and innovation, and how it is that we look at problem solving, right? And we can recognize that we have an untapped talent pool, particularly in the area of persons living with disability. So this presentation really is designed to help us to look beyond labels and to challenge biases, because we, in our own spaces, have created our own personal biases of what should be, what is the norm, what should obtain. And so we've created that regardless of the physical ability, the background, or how people identify themselves. We can agree that each and every one of us can contribute in a meaningful and effective way. So we want to be embracing diversity in all forms, irrespective of how that looks, right? And fostering the inclusion of persons with disability so that we can unlock the full potential of our workforce and strengthen the fabric of our organization. So today, our objectives, we'll be looking at what is a definition really of diversity and inclusion, and particularly in the context of the Jamaican workplace and inclusion of persons with disability. We want to be identifying what the social, economical, and organizational benefits are to embracing diversity and inclusion. We want to take a minute to pause and look at also what are the barriers to inclusion. And we want to look at what are the legal and ethical framework, the responsibility of our Jamaican employers, particularly under the Disabilities Act. In an activity that we have, we will be applying the Mindspace behavioral frame change module to create an environment that you can use to empower and encourage your organization to create an environment where PhDs, PWDs, and other underrepresented group can thrive. We're going to be looking at real success stories of Jamaicans who have made an impact in our society and in businesses in Jamaica as well. And we want to be developing an actionable strategies to promote inclusivity in hiring, training, the different areas of HR management and development. And I'm going to invite you at the end, having looked at diversity and inclusion and the success stories, to commit to a personal and organizational change that you will be doing to build an inclusive workplace culture. So when you think of diversity, what comes to mind? I would like to be seeing in the chat. So persons can open their mic again. It's an interactive session. When you think about diversity, what comes to mind?
Differences.
Differences. That was Ramala?
No, Allison.
Allison, thank you, Allison. Come on, I said that's an interactive presentation. So it's not me just talking and talking and talking, but for us to be inclusive in the presentation, right?
I'm becoming more convinced when we talk about diversity. We must look below the surface. We must look beneath the surface. So a lot of people will think that you have old and young people, you have males and females, you have people who don't identify as either gender that we're familiar with. You might have all of that. But I'm also thinking that diversity should include the way people think. So you have neurodiverse people. So it's more than what we see. We should actually account for things that we're not seeing on the surface.
Correct. Thank you for that contribution, OMT, and that's exactly what it is. Any other inputs? We want to be hearing from the members online. So it's just what Alison and Olivine said. Diversity refers to the differences among people, and it can be visible or invisible, and OMT alluded to it, right? And it could be whether it is ethnicity or culture, whether it's gender, male, and gender is not going to say male or female, it's about how you identify, sexual orientation, the disability status, even religion, right? So all of that collectively, all of those factors collectively come together to make persons diverse. And all of that now even though we are talking about diversity, we have to also look at inclusion, because there's one thing, yes, you come to the workplace and we have different persons from all walks of life with their different opinions and backgrounds and perspective, but we want to be ensuring that those experiences, we're forming an environment that ensure that we have an intentional effort to ensure that all of the individuals, they feel respected and valued and supported, and that we remove the barriers that provides equal access to opportunities and fosters a culture where everybody's voice can be heard, person's decision, they can influence the decision, and they can have a seat at the table. So inclusion is going beyond diversity, about whether the visible or the invisible. Now we can break it down a little bit further by looking at the benefits of diversity and inclusion, because everything comes with it, with some benefits. Some comes with benefits and disadvantages, right? So I want to be looking at how does diversity and inclusion benefit the workplace. First, it breaks down stereotype, right? And it fosters empathy and understanding. So when it is that you come to the workplace with a different background and you have empathy in understanding that it's not just about you, but it's about a collective. It's not persons operating in a silo, but we're working together as a team, and we're able to put ourselves in another person's shoe just to take a look through their lens of how it is that they see things, so that we can have them included in our team building exercises, including their opinion in decision making, in meetings that we may hold. In having an inclusive and diverse workforce helps to build a strong community, a sense of purpose, a sense of belonging, and that now can improve the employee engagement and retention. Having diversity and inclusion in the workplace, again, it helps to boost innovation and problem solving. So when you have it helps to remove groupthink. So nobody challenges the status quo or challenges an idea. Everybody, whatever the idea is or whatever the decision is, persons say, oh yeah, let us conform with that. But when we have a diverse and inclusive workforce, we are better able to solve problems and to be creative. Fun facts, over 200,000 Jamaicans live with some form of disability. And disabilities, we're going to get into it. It can be visible or it can also be invisible. So I'm competing with the rain. So we are saying that the PWDs are underutilized talent pool. We haven't fully tapped into that pool of talents that are available to us, that we can help to build that community, that bringing PWDs into a space can allow for their opinions, their own experiences, and their own contribution to the workspace. Inclusion promotes equality and economic empowerment. We know that for the PWDs, these are underserved. We haven't really been using them. So in terms of financial and economic benefits, these persons are at a disadvantage because most employers are not open to engaging persons living with disability. And so you'd find that persons, they're one of the pool of persons that have a high unemployment rates. So PWD's employment fosters innovation through diverse perspective, and we would have said that before. So we're going to move on to understanding what disability is. A disability is a condition of the body or mind which makes it difficult for persons with the condition to do certain activity and to also interact with the world around them. Can you put yourself in somebody's shoe? Just think about if it is that you were that person that had a disability and you had that difficulty to really interact and socialize as you would want to. You're restricted by your disability, whether a blindness or a dismemberment of a part of your body. You know, so you have to think about the conditions of the body or the mind that will make it difficult for that person. So when we're able to put ourselves in the person living with disability shoe, we're better able to interact and understand where they're coming from and to include them in the workplace. So disability can come from 3 dimensions. It could be an impairment, right? So you have an ear impairment where you're unable to hear. It could be blindness, right? And it could be activity limitation or participation restriction. So you're restricted to participate in certain activities. We want to have an appreciation that the condition of disability can be any of the following. So it can be present at birth and affect functions later in life. It can be a developmental condition that becomes known during childhood. It can be related to an injury, or it can be correlated to a long-standing condition. Now, think about, as I mentioned before, you not having born with a disability. You're born good. Growing up, everything was well, and suddenly you wake up and you're unable to see. Or you meet in an accident and you lose a limb. That is going to have some impact on your life. That is going to restrict you some way, shape, or form. So saying all of this to say that we want the presentation to encourage persons to look at how is it that they have been treating with or dealing with persons living with disability, and to see how it is that they can make a change. Because again, it doesn't have to be that you are born with a disability. It could be that you know, something in your bloodline, your genes, and then it just out of nowhere, it sprung on you. And what do you do at that stage of your life, right? So types of disability, we have the physical disability, which provides hindrance to your body parts. We have the sensory disabilities, such as your hearing and your vision, intellectual, and we also have the psychosocial or the mental health. And we mentioned that disabilities may be visible or invisible, but everybody's disability, their experience is unique. Because if somebody has lost a leg, for example, that disability or what is it that they may be restricted to may be different from if somebody were legally blind. All right. So this is a video of persons living with disability in the workplace and just how persons would interact with this group of persons. We want you to take a look at the video. Let me know if you're hearing, please.
I'm not hearing anything.
All right, I'm gonna try again.
Good morning, Bob. Good morning there, big man. Good morning, Bob. Good morning there, big man. Morning, Alice! There's no need to be awkward.
Poor Bob. Like so many of us, he just doesn't know how to interact with people with disabilities.
It's pretty easy, really. People with disabilities are people first.
We need the same things that every person needs, like respect.
Good morning, everyone.
Attention!
Okay. Maybe we need to be more specific.
The easiest way to show respect is to focus on the person, not the disability. It's okay. You'll get the hang of it.
One easy way to focus on the person is to watch the person signing and not their interpreter.
Or their companion.
It's really cool that you'd like to help, but do us both a favor and please ask me first. What you think might be helping?
I got you.
Wait, ah! Oh no, might actually not.
If you'd like to offer me help, let me hold on to your elbow. Don't take mine.
Hey, would you like to take my arm?
Sure.
Assistive devices help us to live our lives. They're really important and really personal.
Grabbing them only makes it weird for everyone.
What? Please only touch our devices and service animals if we've given you permission. And don't take it personally if I ask you not to. Remember that my service animal helps me all the time. Neither of us would like it if we were separated.
Remember, we make our own decisions. We sign documents, vote, volunteer, work, and pay taxes.
We get married.
So don't underestimate me just because I have a great smile.
Just because I'm blind
May I help you?
does not mean I'm deaf.
I don't know. I think he said he was going to come. Just because I'm deaf doesn't mean I'm blind.
And just because I use a wheelchair doesn't mean that I can't sweep you off your feet.
So take a deep breath. Relax. We don't bite.
Unless we're really hungry.
Hello there, ladies. How are you?
Hello. And if you're not sure what to do, just ask.
Hi, would you still like to see a menu?
No thanks, but can you please read it to me?
Sure, definitely.
Just treat us the way you would want to be treated, and we'll all be okay.
All right. So the video is showing us, can you, well, I'm gonna go to the audience online. Can you share what you got from the video? What was your takeaway from the video?
That persons with disabilities want what everybody else wants. You want to be treated with respect, with consideration. You do want people to be empathetic, but on the other hand, they must do it. You don't want pity. You want respect. It's as simple as that.
That's simple as that. Just treat them, persons living with disabilities, as how you would want to be treated. So you're interacting and engaging them as how, in a similar way to which you would want somebody else to do. Alison has her hand up.
What I got as well is that how you label people can influence how you think in terms of persons with disabilities versus disabled persons.
Yes. Very valid point, Alison. And thank you for that contribution. Anybody else?
Hi, if I may, one of the things that I gathered from that video is to be mindful of what we defined as help for those who are not disabled.
Yes. And as the video said, always ask first, because sometimes what it is that we are proposing to be helping may actually be hindering, so we want to be asking first. Any other inputs? All right. Thanks, Alison. Thanks,
No,
Trisha and
the only other
OMT.
input I would have made, I was just saying that it was a social construct. So just as you say, whatever you think is whatever you think is how you will treat the person because you have defined them in a certain way. So
Yes, they're prejudicing, yes.
Yeah, so the way to change it is for us to change our thinking. Change that. We by limiting people in our minds, we limit them in reality because we don't behave properly around them.
And that is so true. That is so true, OMT, because we form or we have our stereotypes and we have our own way in which we think of the person when that is not necessarily the reality. All right. So one of the things is that the Disability Act, which came in effect on in 2022, it came in effect to promote and encourage employment of persons living with disability and to prohibit discrimination in employment. Right. It also requires employees to install or ensure that they have reasonable accommodation for persons living with disability and ensure accessibility to in the workplaces. Right, the law is promoting and protecting equality. So equal pay for equal work that is done. So not because the person is disabled, you're going to pay them on the lower salary scale when they're doing the same amount of work or the scope of their job is similar to another person that doesn't have a disability. Right? Ethically, we want to ensure that we are encouraging full participation in all aspects of national and organizational life. So it's not just to have them there, but to have them included in the activities, having them feel a part of something, achieving a mission, helping to achieve or come up with ideas or make a decision, influencing a decision, right? And one of the ways that we can promote just having persons living with disability in the workplace is by providing disability sensitivity training and encouraging the adoption of universal design principles in our policies, system, and workplace infrastructure. So we would have said that it's not just a checkbox, but we want it to be included in the strategy of the organization, and not just to put in policies where persons don't read. So, the dust comes and takes up that policy, but we want it to be something where the managers, the leaders of the organization are putting into practice, how it is that they treat, how it is that they include people living with disability. All right. So an activity, we want you to identify one policy or facility or even a practice in your workplace that can adjust this month to align with the duties. And the duties, again, ensure accessibility, reasonable accommodation, prohibits discrimination in employment, or even to ensure full participation in decision-making and team-building activities and in meetings. So this is where you come in and you can share with us one policy, one practice, or anything in your workplace that you can adjust to align with the ethical and legal responsibility of an employer.
Sorry, can I go back to the duty slide, please?
Alison?
Sorry. No, I was saying if you could just for a second go back to the duty slide, please.
Okay.
One small thing that they could do, which might not be, a lot of expense, would be to ensure that walkways are paved and pavers are steady in the ground. And that would not only help persons who use wheelchairs, persons who are blind, just anybody at all who has to traverse an unsafe walkway. Because one of the things that you haven't said yet is how easy it would be for any of us who are walking around happily today to become somebody with a disability tomorrow,
Yes.
simply because we have fallen and broken our back or something like that. So I know the place where I work, my office, just having a decent walkway just in and out of the office would be a major change in the short term. It wouldn't have to be very expensive, and it would make a big difference. And it would send a serious signal to all members of staff, persons living with disabilities or not.
Thank you for that, Olivine. And that is correct. Just installing on rails or paving the walkway is just something that is not costly, that the employer can install to make it more, the workplace more accommodating to persons living with disability. Anyone else?
Melissa put something in the chat.
Okay.
Melissa said representation in decision making, which would enable decisions that positively impact persons with disabilities. And Maurice said, treat persons, he was responding to the earlier question, treat persons with disabilities by asking them how they want to be treated. This will push you to ask them instead of imposing an action on them.
Yes, certainly, certainly. And as Linton, Mr. Linton, Miss Linton is Melissa, sorry. My chairman is Linton. All right, so representation in decision making, which enables a decision that positively impact PWDs. And it's not just PWDs, but the organization on a whole, because they have a voice. PWDs, they have a voice. They have creative ideas. They have inputs and suggestions that will help to change the narrative of an organization or even product development and customer loyalty and retention, just positive representation from persons with disabilities. No, not because they have a disability, doesn't mean that we should lock them away from having a seat at the table, but to include them so that their decision can be heard. And then we can have like a 360 now view of what the problem is and how is it that what the solution that we're proposing to ensure that it is the most ideal solution for the problem. All right, so CJ Ray says, would we be able to get certificates of participation on these sessions for work profile, which is encouraged as part of PD? OMT?
I responded and said that I would have to actually see people participating. So.
All right, so CJ Ray, that's your cue to begin to participate so that Miss OMT can consider having certs for these sessions. All right, so we're moving on. So we have some barriers to diversity and inclusion, and these could be under three. I put them under three categories: recruitment, promotion, and workplace culture. So for job description with exclusionary language, meaning what I mean here is sometimes the job descriptions are outdated. So they're no longer relevant, but we put them there and it can act as a barrier to diversity or inclusion. For instance, we may say that a social media coordinator, a requirement for that position is that the person would need to lift a 50-pound weights in 50 pounds or bags of 50-pound parcels or whatever. But then does a social media coordinator job, does it really require you to be lifting anything at all? Not necessarily, no. So what we do is sometimes we don't update our job description. We have them and we just use them, dust them off, change the title, or the position is upgraded or change over time, but we don't change the requirements for the job. We may have limited reach. So where we're putting our And I'm seeing comments in the chat. Integration is key, as all of us have levels of disabilities, and that is so right. CJ Ray, as long as respect and good intentions are the focus in any organization. So you're saying that you're not able to open your mic presently, but that's fine. And that is true. Some of us may have a disability that we may not even realize that it is a disability. Just to piggyback on what you're saying, because some persons may be dyslexic, you know, in terms of reading and writing, may have a challenge with reading and writing, but you have not been diagnosed. So you don't really know that you have a disability, and you do, or you may have a disability. So some of us may have disability that we are not even aware of, right? Or it's invisible. So as we're talking about our recruitment barriers, we're talking about limited outreach. So we're talking about just having it in a certain space that maybe only a certain set of person or a certain demographic would have access to that, the advertisement there, right? So you may think, okay, let me just put it on LinkedIn, because LinkedIn is where it is at. So we don't have like a diverse pool of our channel through which we advertise then, right? And we're limiting persons' ability to be able to see the advertisements, right? Maurice is saying that the weight requirement is reasonable, but oftentimes traditional office job requires weight of 20 pounds, not 50 pounds. But that's the point, Maurice, that sometimes the job descriptions are so outdated that, you know, we have these things that are there and it's irrelevant to the current position. So Olivine is saying, or the disability precludes us from some activity, but not others, and we're not classified as having disability simply because we are not forced to do something that we can't do. Facts. And another barrier, moving on, is that we have some unconscious bias in screening, and we have to become aware of these biases. Right, perhaps how persons write their resume. So the person may be fully qualified for the position, but how it is that they write the resume may be, you know, biased. I don't like the fonts that the person uses, or I don't like the structure, or this is not modern enough, or aren't they keeping up with time? And so we sometimes have our own biases that hinders diversity and inclusion. So we're looking at promotion barriers in that the glass ceiling for underrepresented group. Oh, this person may not be able to manage. So it's not that it's not based on performance, it's based on subjectivity. We're saying that, okay, this mother coming back from maternity leave, for example, she has her children, so she may not be able to manage the pressure of being promoted, or this person living with disability can't be promoted because, and we find every reason why the person can't be promoted. So while we'll keep them, while we may engage them at entry level positions, we're saying that we're not going to advance them. So we're going to be putting a ceiling on these persons. Carmen says that workplaces need to invest in having some of their employees trained in sign language to facilitate meaningful communication with PWDs who are mute. Maybe it should become a requirement for HR practitioners, right? And that could be a way in which we are encouraging and engaging persons living with disabilities, right? Because if we have persons that can sign and can understand and communicate, it makes it so much easier to incorporate persons living with disabilities. So I totally agree with that. Ramala said, or the candidate will not fit our culture here. Right, so that is something that person say, right, Ramala, when it is that they instead of the promoting the person, we say, no, that person won't fit our culture here. So biases in performance review. Sometimes it's not about how the person perform. Again, it's about how we feel about the person. and we talk, and we can go into the different biases, the performance appraisal, the biases that we undertake when it is that we're doing a performance review. Another thing is that lack of mentorship or sponsorship could be a barrier to promotion, or a promotion barrier, which is a barrier also to diversity and inclusion. One of the things that we tend to do, and as Jamaicans, and it's something that we will grow out of with sensitization sessions and just to be exposed to information, is just the insensitive jokes or comments that we make. So for example, we may say, "Wani, come here," or "Wani, go and get that from the printer for us." Not treating the person as a person or as we would want to be treated. So not because the person is, for example, having a harm removed, you are going to call the person Wani. That person may just feel insecure about their disability, and you're further complicating that person's situation by making jokes or comments about that individual, right? And also some persons, this is always a barrier to diversity or inclusion, resistance to change.
I have another one too, the lack of understanding about the culture. So for instance, I've been doing a lot of work with deaf persons, and pointing for them is important. They point at things. But for us, for the wider population, pointing is rude. So that sort of thing, they're seen as being rude. The other thing is the lack of us providing facilitation. So for example, we heard that there was a person who was deaf who went off the job, just walked away for 2 weeks. It wasn't that he was abandoning the job. It's that nobody explained the whole issues of applying for leave and having it approved and all of that. And he observed that other people went away and came back 2 weeks later. And he did that, only to hear he didn't have a job. But that was when they were doing the separation aspect of it. They were realizing that nobody even bothered to explain. There was no proper onboarding for that person. So the wider community doesn't facilitate. And the other thing I was thinking, you had mentioned fonts, and some of these assisted technological devices, and they present things in a way that is different. So for instance, you might have something that types in all caps, but to the wider society, all caps is shouting. So if somebody who needs that, somebody maybe who has poor vision, that person is typing in all caps, and we think that this is rude. We judge them because we don't understand what they need in order to survive in the wider community. And the other thing too is that we often don't extend ourselves. So you see this thing about resistance to change? Think about it. If we were to build ramps instead of stairs, do you realize that persons who don't need wheelchairs can use ramps? Persons who need wheelchairs cannot use stairs. So wouldn't it be better for us to just do the ramps instead of saying, I can't afford to put in ramps for the 2 people who work at this office who need wheelchairs? Put in ramps for everybody. So things like those are the sorts of things that hamper people from their ability to work in the wider workforce.
Olivine, sorry, I was trying to raise my hand, but couldn't find the option.
Okay, go ahead.
No, I'm happy Olivine raised those issues, and I think part of it is that what we held on to as cultural norms, she's suggesting that we may now need to relook them within the space, because our cultures and some of the things we held on to dearly, to define our professional codes and so on, were in fact are now regarded as barriers to inclusion. And whilst we might, I mean, we still have the issue of understanding what we call diversity, since we're out of many one people. I think we really need to truly define what we're considering diversity to be. And then you invite me to the place, how do you know allow me to feel included?
Yes.
Yeah, and much of that is going to be the accommodation. You know, most of that is going to be giving me the extra time to complete that application form, providing me with a translator or an interpreter if that's what's needed. Considering that I might need multiple breaks within the day, and it does not necessarily mean I'm not still doing an 8-hour day. How do we look at what the impediment or what the disability is, and then respond to that by saying what are the things that will create equity in the space for that person. So I think that there's a lot more conversation that need to be had around how we're going to tackle the issue of diversity and inclusion as we think about those persons in the workplace who have disability of one kind or the other. And I'll pause there.
Thank you for that, Maurice. And that's a valid point from both yourself and OMT, because when we're talking about, as you said, when we're talking about accommodation and just persons opening up and just understanding how, you know, when we look at diversity and inclusion and how it is that we communicate and engage with each other, we have to understand that how our person living with that disability may react to a situation may not necessarily be the way how a normal person, well, let me not say normal, but how a person without a disability would respond. And so it will take some sensitization, and will take more than just going into the workspace, but to start it from the elementary level of looking at what diversity and inclusion is. And it would not be something that may change overnight, but over time, with us we're just injecting the importance of and seeing and empathizing with people living with disability, injecting that into the different spaces, then we can begin to erode the whole resistance to change and how it is that persons are accommodating of people living with disabilities. All right, so we have an activity, and this is walking in my shoe, understanding the PWD experience. So I want you to stand and tell me when you're standing, because I can't see anybody.
Standing.
You're standing? Who is standing?
Yes, Alison.
Alison, great. Who else is standing? Olivine is standing. Anybody else? So it's a part of experiential learning, in that if you don't, you're not going to be able to relate to it if you don't do the activity. So I'm seeing Trisha is standing, Maurice is standing, Brittany is standing. All right, Brittany, or rather, is standing. All right, so we're standing. What I want you to do is just keep one of your leg immobile. Act as though it is injured, it is permanently removed. You can't move it. You're unable to move that leg. God forbid, it will be permanent, but we're doing an activity. I want you now to attempt to take 3 to 4 steps forward. I hear like somebody drop. Alison, is that you?
No, I didn't drop. It's paper.
So Alison, things are falling all over the place. So now I want you to just reflect silently on the following. How does this change the way you move and interact with your environment? What challenges do you notice immediately? How would you want colleagues, supervisors, or strangers to treat you in this situation? So, for example, you were in an accident and that leg was completely removed. Doctor said, boy, there's no chance of saving the leg. I want you to sit for just reflect silently on the following, and then I'm going to ask persons to just share with us. Just share with us what their experience was like. How did it make you feel? What surprised you about the experience? How does this connect to your day-to-day reality faced by, how do you think this connects to persons living with a disability? And, what can we do personally as an organization to remove unnecessary barriers? So these are some of the questions that we're asking ourselves, that if this were to be us, so we no longer have with two legs or with two eyes, or so we wake up one morning and have some form of disability. Talk to us. Olivina, see you're raring to go.
No, well, the first thing I found is that I was reaching for furniture to see if I could get help. So that's the first thing. You try to, you try to compensate then. If you have a broken leg, for example, that is how you would move, then I considered hopping to see if I could do the 3 to 4 steps, and then recognize that that wouldn't work either, because if I overbalanced at all, I would be in trouble. So I didn't even try that. I dismissed it. But I think what I was really trying was to hold on to 2 tables to see if I could use them as 2 crutches to hop forward, I suppose. But so have 3 legs instead of 2. The other thing I recognized is how frightening even contemplating this for an exercise in a workshop is. That actually is the other thing that I'm hung up on. I don't even want to think about the possibility of losing a leg.
Thank you,
that I think, yeah.
Anybody else?
If I may,
Anybody
my
else want to share?
apologies. I'm trying to find a raised hand and unable to. So for me, I had to think about what I was going to do to move forward. And the first thing crossed my mind was to hop. I tried to shimmy. Of course, that didn't work. So it was a thought process that we actually take for granted.
Yes. Yes.
So
Anybody else want to share?
Yeah, so I was doing the same thing that OMT and Ms. Carrera was doing. Years ago, I had sprained my ankle, and like badly. So hopping was the thing. And what I gathered from that experience that I never forget is how much I would hate to depend on somebody to move around. Like I went to bed and I got up, and to use the bathroom, to reach the bathroom was stress. Right? And what coming to the workplace, and then what came to my mind was patience.
Yes.
I would need a whole lot of patience from my co-workers, because I would not be able to move as I usually would move. So yeah.
Nice. Thank you. We're gonna summarize at the end. I see Carmen, and I also saw Maurice, but Maurice has had put down his hand, so I'm not sure. Carmen, you can go ahead.
Good afternoon, Carmen L. Johnson here. So far, are you hearing me?
Yes, we're hearing.
Okay, so for me, when I had a challenge with my leg, I chose to hop around even though they offered me a chair, because what I didn't want was for anybody to be pitying me or to be sorry for me. I wanted to be treated as being normal, because as I said to them, I am not sick. It is my foot that has a challenge, not me.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe it's the same way that those PWD persons want to be seen. I can't see, but I'm still normal. And then I said to my 20 minutes. And so I start learning to deep breathe and count and recognize that, oh, they're not taking 20 minutes to come. It's just just 1 minute or just under a minute. And so I had to learn patience and tolerance. But the sad part of it, I took a decision that if I can't move around and people are going to have to help me, I would prefer to die. Maybe I'm a little bit more mature now. I may change that perspective, but I don't want to be dependent and have to wait on anybody to do things. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Carmen. Maurice, you had.
Sure. I was just I was sharing the same sentiment as Olivine in terms of my attempt to move. And I will say to you, after moving the one foot, I recognize that I probably need more help than I thought I would. I thought I'd mapped it out in my head that I hop away and get this done. And then I realized my circumstances, the environment I was in, did not make hopping conducive. It increased the risk, so I decided to play it safe and just stay where I'm at, and waited until I could get some help. So I agree with the conversation about just that whole need to show understanding in cases of this, and recognizing, as well as Olivine had stated earlier, the need for support. And be it a walk, or be it a desk or chair, something that would have been able to help me to create that balance until I've learned other ways to move around. So it was a very humbling experience, is how I would put it. Thank you for asking us to participate in this.
Thank you. Thank you for all the contribution, the participation. And that is what we really want, like for you to experience what it is like. And if you can just imagine that being your permanent state, you would want, as I think Carmen, Allison, Miss Carrara, or is it, I would say Trisha, I don't want to butcher your name, says that we would want persons to treat us with patience and tolerance and to empathize with us, but not to pity us, right? To treat us as though we are normal. It's not about this disability. We are people first. We are people before the disability, right? And so it really is an humbling experience when we are in the shoe of the person that experienced that very thing every day, right? And so
and I just wanted to point out to it is not only that disability. In the chat I'd mentioned how I did something with some children in a primary school. It was a part of a Lions Club activity, and I was blindfolded, and the children were supposed to guide me around and see how easy that was. And the children, they were naughty. They put your hands on dirty things. I remember one put my hand down in the garbage bin and all that sort of thing. Wow. And they thought that was funny. They thought that was funny. And I thought to myself that a blind person really has to trust the people who are trying to help them, or the people who offer help, because not everybody has your best interest at heart.
That's true. That is true. And it reminds us about they just being insensitive as well, so because some persons can be, so because they know that you're not in a position to help yourself, they take advantage of your situation. And that's what we're trying to say. Okay, put yourself in their position. If you were them, how would you want to be treated? And so you would want anyone to be insensitive towards you. You'd want to be able to trust others, right? So that same level of care is what we are saying that we want to be inculcating in this workplace, in the organization, to make not just diversity by just having persons with disability in the workplace, but how do we include them in a way that shows that, it's not about your disability. We recognize that you are a person. All right, so we are going to be looking at the Mindspace Behavioral Change module. And from this activity, I'm going to invite you to do, from this session, I'm going to invite you to do an activity with me in groups. So I'm going to ask OMT to just put persons in group for about 15 minutes. But I'll share what activity is later on. All right, so when we talk about some mind space or behavioral change module, it can be used to help to influence how we modify or adjust our behavior to a particular situation. And we want to be using this module to help for like a learning exercise to see how it is that we can use the module in our very workplace, right? And when we talk about messenger, so it's about messenger incentive. So this is what the acronym stands for: messenger, incentive, norms, defaults, salience, timing, affects, commitments, and ego. So persons are able to influence by who is communicating the information to them. So if it's somebody that is highly respected, the information, it flows and is better received by the audience. So we want to, whenever we're making a change, we want to ensure that the messenger is correct to communicate the message to the audience. Incentive is always good. Persons always want to ensure that they're getting, there's something in it for them, basically, right? So we respond to incentives and have a predictable mental shortcut and strong desire to avoid losses. So if it is that we know that we're going to be gaining something from it, either it could be even look good, as a Jamaican term. It could be just look good in the eyes of somebody else. We are saying that yes, we're going to, it's something that incentivize. So if for example, we're doing a policy or we're making a change at the organization to include PWDs, and we say, okay, then the person, this is part of a award system, let's say a staff of the quarter, and one of the criteria is to show like inclusion with PWD or working with PWD, then persons that will encourage and motivate people. And then over time, it just becomes the norm. So we have to normalize the acceptance of an inclusion of people, PWDs, in the workplace, because it is what is the norm, what is normal for us, what is a normal behavior, what is acceptable on a day-to-day basis. So if it is that we see that, or we make it, because we can change, we can make it the norm, right, for PWDs to be in the workplace, and we're not making a decision until we hear from Alex, who has dyslexia. We have to hear his opinion before we make a decision. We have to ensure that our PWDs have a seat at the table, and we are talking and we're including them, and their voices are heard and they feel respected. And if that becomes a norm and managers are walking the walk and talking the talk, then it becomes an everyday thing that people see and they conform to. The faults, whatever the presets are, so you may be doing something, you go back to what is programmed. So we go with the flow or preset options, whatever it is easiest, I guess, for us. So when we talk about salience, our attention is drawn to novel things that seems relevant to us. And sometimes at first it may not seem relevant, and salience and priming can go hand in hand, in that it may be just you pass a photo on the wall every day and you don't realize that you're absorbing the information or the message. And that is, you're drawn into your behavior towards people living with disabilities changing based on the message that you're seeing around you. And priming, even the subconscious cue or actions are often influenced by those, because I'm just going to give an example of a tasty patty or mother's party. Whenever you hear an ad or even hear a song where you don't even realize that you know the lyrics until you start singing to the song, and it's not something that you study, but because you're exposed to the information over time, it becomes a part of your system, and you're subconsciously, you're in tune with that particular thing. So similarly for PWDs, once it is that we have the policies or the communication or the different strategies that are set up in place that facilitate working with PWDs in a respectful manner and inclusive manner, then you find that, it just that's just how it is now. You know, your behavior over time change towards PWDs, and just having patience and tolerance and being able to empathize with them, because now you're able to have a better understanding and appreciation of the challenges. May even become friends with them, and then they can express to you what the challenges that they have on a day-to-day basis, and then you're better able to relate and adjust your behavior towards them. All right, so affects or action can powerfully shape our emotion. And again, you becoming friends with a person living with a disability, WD. You also, your behavior towards them change. Or if they're in an organization like for my organization, where accountant is legally blind in one eye, and for the most part almost blind in the other eye, but it doesn't even feel as though he's a PWD, because all the meetings is included in all the board meetings, the staff meetings or activities, if we have birthdays, and we're just, we're rapping and we're vibing, and it's dealing with him as a person and not seeing him as, the blind accountant. We don't need to hear from him. And he's very, very intelligent, having institutional knowledge. And so that relationship that you build with the person, you have some emotional connection with the person. It helps to also shape how you relate to them. So when you talk about affect, we can look at that. So commitment, if it is that we publicly promise that, this is what we're going to do, as at the end of this presentation, I'm going to ask you to make a personal commitment and to suggest something that you can do in your organization, or some influence that you can make in your organization to help with what we're doing here. Then you publicly do it. You know that you're going to follow up with the action, because you don't want anybody to say, that person is not a man of his word. You want person to say, yeah, man, when that person speaks, they follow through with their action. And so we talk about commitments. And then ego, we act in ways that make us feel better about ourselves, right? And that is self-explanatory. So the activities, now we're at this juncture where we're going to be using this very behavioral change module to create a plan of action that our organization can use to include and promote acceptance and inclusion of persons living with disabilities. So I'm going to ask OMT to just put persons in a breakout rooms. Just randomly select persons, OMT, and put them in breakout rooms. We're going to be giving them 15 minutes each.
Yes, I'm doing that.
Right, 15 minutes each to do this activity. And then we need one representative from each group, which will get 5 minutes to share your plan of action with us.
Quick question: Do we have access to the image of the mind space chart?
Can you repeat what you said, please? The rain is competing with my speaker.
My apologies. Will we have access to the mind space chart in the break rooms?
What you can do is to take a photo of it. I'm not sure how Olivia may be able to help me to navigate that part of it.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
I just put the image in the chat. Is anybody seeing it?
Into our work. So we're looking at the messenger, the incentives, norms, defaults, salience, timing, affect, commitments, and ego.
Okay.
Those are the, I would say, the subheadings for the mind space charts.
I put the mind space image in the chat. Did you see it? So that you can have it for yourself?
Just seeing it. And you can remind us of the question for clarity? It's how to incorporate it in our workspaces?
Oh, one sec. One sec. Create a plan of action that your organization can use to include and promote the acceptance of people living with disabilities.
Okay. Thank you.
Right, I'm putting that in the chat as well.
Thank you. I don't have a notepad. Ms. Higgins, do you want to take notes, or you have access to a notepad for our conversation?
Good afternoon.
Afternoon. I'm just making sure that the tasks are in the chat. So I've put both the Mindspace model and the activity instructions. So are you seeing it? Hello?
Yes, I'm seeing the mind space instruction.
The model and the instructions.
No, I'm not seeing the model yet. I'll search for the model.
Okay, all right. Let me put that again. Yes. Seeing it now? Okay, so have we started? All right, if you look at mind space, and the first thing is saying that the messenger is important, what that means is that if you're going to have change at the organization, you're going to need somebody with influence being a champion for the change that you want to make. So is there some popular person, or it could be somebody influenced not necessarily through popularity? Could you speak with the union and have the union begin to champion persons with disabilities in the organization? So it's somebody who can sway the opinions of others. That person should be the person who will bring that message change. So it could be the CEO, somebody who is a leader, a recognized leader in the organization, saying that this is the way that we're going to be doing things going forward. So one of the things you could do would be to enlist the support of somebody with influence. So you identify somebody, put your case to them, and have that person help you take it forward. For incentives, if you want change at the organization, You're going to have to show the organization what is in it for the organization. So organizations are often, they often guard their image in the eyes of the public very jealously. So if you told the organization that it would look good to pretend, so for instance, the University of the West Indies, if you told them that top universities in the world make accommodations for persons with disabilities, then they would want to get on the bandwagon to do that. If you told them, if you pointed out inconsistencies and called them on it, so they have a policy for including persons with disabilities, but the physical plant, the way the building is structured, suggests that they're not serious about that. Then you can point that out to them, because they, and that also goes with the commitment in that you have a policy in place. You've published it online. You don't want somebody to challenge you in public and say that you're not people of your word. So there is that is one way. That is one thing you could do. Is anybody hearing me?
Yes, I'm hearing you, Olivine.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So all right, let's see what else we could do. The other thing too, so that could be the messenger and the incentives. For the norms, we could be looking at it. If, for example, the university, the organization that I know, they say they want to include persons with disabilities, it has to become normal. So, for example, you want to have persons with disabilities being seen to do things. So the person who is in a wheelchair could be the one who is chairing a meeting or something like that, but include them in the activities that they can do, in the things that so as I said, do the things that they can do, let them do it until it becomes normal for us to see persons with disabilities around the place. They're doing everything else that we are all doing, That's the sort of thing. In looking at things like the default, no, going with the flow. No, this is again where leadership, and I think maybe the program that we want here is to have some sort of representation made to the leadership, because it has to start with them. So they have to be the ones seen to include persons of all sorts in the activities, in the important activities of the organization. So you want, if we're trying to make it seem normal for persons with disabilities to be around, let them get into leadership positions. So the leaders would have to be sharing their power with them. So we'll sensitize persons with influence to what people with disabilities can do, and then allow them to do it and reward. So for instance, if a unit head or a departmental head hires somebody with a disability, there should be some sort of reward for it, some sort of, for instance, again, I'm talking about university, somebody with a disability makes Professor Floyd Morris. A professorship is the highest rank that an academic can achieve. So him being a professor is a big thing. It's a big thing because we're celebrating his intelligence and his productivity as an academic. We are not looking at the fact that the gentleman cannot see, that the gentleman is blind. We're not looking at that at all. We're looking at the things that we reward in this organization. He has done everything that he needed to do. He published the right number of papers. He did the outreach work. He did all that he had to do to become a professor, and he was made a professor. That is the sort of thing that we need to see happening. And if you do that, if for instance, the HRD unit were to admit somebody who is a wheelchair user into our classroom, and we are given the money to build the ramp for our classroom separate and apart from our regular budget, then that would that would cause other units to not be afraid to bring persons with disability in, knowing that they'll be given the resources to facilitate these persons. So that is something that we might want to look at. The thing about our actions are often influenced by our subconscious cues. When we see the leaders in the organization who we respect behaving in a certain way, we begin to behave in that certain way, even if we don't have something immediate. So, for instance, we see the level of respect with which the senior management regard Dr. Morris. And you know he's a gentleman worthy of being respected. Even if you don't have a blind student in your class, you don't know if this student with just a little help could become another Dr. Morris. So even if you don't have a blind person in your unit or your program, your attitude toward blind persons has changed simply because you now know without any doubt that just by being allowed to compete on an equal level with everybody else, this person can get to the top of the pile. So your attitude will change. So how you behave going forward will be influenced by what you are learning a little at a time, learning subconsciously. Nobody came to preach at you, to tell you that you have to do this. You can't legislate genuine change. So for instance, if somebody says it's now illegal to discriminate against people, you know it's illegal. And all you'll do is find other excuses that have nothing to do with their disability. But you find some other excuse, some other way to explain the fact that you're still discriminating against somebody. So we want to not have that. It is better if I come to the conclusion myself that my behavior needs to change. So all these more subtle cues working on me internally for me to see other things, all of those things is better than for you to try to force me to change my mind. So that is something. And of course, as I said, you don't want to be called out in public that you're not a person of your word. So you're going to do what you say you're going to do. And I see myself as an enlightened person because we're pushing the notion that if we have a regard for human rights, that we're civilized people, we're not savages. So, so that's what I'm saying. So I think that the program that we would need to do would be something that sensitizes the leadership of the organization to the responsibility that they have in changing the attitudes in the organization. So the leaders themselves may feel that it is a good thing to have persons with disabilities in the organization, but they also need to understand that those feelings that they have at this point can't be private. They have to actually be seen to be walking the walk and talking the talk and putting their money where their mouth is and all of those sorts of cliches. They need to be seen. They need it. This is where their leadership needs to be demonstrated. That is what we need to do. So it's some sort of intervention around that kind of outcome that I'm recommending here.
Understood. So while you were speaking, I was just thinking about my place of work and how we have delayed and have taken along to make it more friendly for persons with disability. And when you say we need to find the department or the person of influence, I agree in my mind that the best person to do it is the customer service manager, because they are the persons who receives complaints and then pass the complaints on to us. And I think they can better influence with the number of complaints that they are getting. And then we get somebody from the clinical area now to say, yes, this has been a challenge and creates a delay.
But, and it's a serious thing. If customer service is getting complaints, that is something that the senior management should be concerned about. So yes, customer service must definitely be the person who is going forward to say this has to change. And so you show the customer service all the data, you show them all that you need to show them to get them to become a champion for this cause.
I hear and I believe that's what we need to do, because I think we have been slow, though we've been saying to them the act was passed and that we're mandated that all public spaces should be persons with disability friendly. We have been slow out of the blocks. So I believe having listened to this today, that will push me to help to push the others for us to go forward.
Yes. And the other thing too, it's something I always say to people. I said it earlier. We don't know if we are the person with a disability tomorrow. You go outside, you slip on the wet step, and you never walk another minute. You never walk another day in your life. So we have to understand how easy it can be. Through no fault of their own, these people have disabilities. And so we have to make sure that the whole environment fulfills meets the needs of everybody, because as I said, we don't know when it is our turn to be using these ramps and to be using these rails and to be needing the guide dog, all of those sorts of things. We don't know when it will be our turn to do all of that. You know? So that is something else that we can have people understand, that persons with disabilities are no different from them. And not only that, the person with a disability maybe didn't have a disability last week. So it is really something that we should be sensitive about. Sorry, I'm getting a call. It might be the speaker. It might be the guest speaker.
Okay,
all right?
okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, man. Hello. Yes, yes. Yes, yes. Yeah, we're the section in should enter policy. What should enter on the house? What time is it? Yes. 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 It's open now. It's open now. It's open now. No, they have to come out. No, they have to come out. The disability. Yeah. All right. I will. Yes. All right. We have to wrap up shortly because the next speaker, we're actually gone over 3 o'clock, and the next speaker is ready to answer that for me, please. All right, so we have to wrap up shortly. All right.